when politicians fail to do a good job with rapport, it leaves everyday people stuck wondering how we're supposed to behave,
Hmm.
right? Are we supposed to behave in a way where we are kind and friendly with each other, or are we supposed to be something else?
Exactly. When the posturing takes over, when what everybody is seen, what everybody is shown is posturing instead of the dialogue that's happening behind the scenes, because there is dialogue happening behind the scenes. It's slow and it's grueling and it's brutal, but it happens, right? Some of it gets reported on, but really there's a lot more going on. Then people don't realize that that's actually what's making the world move is
Right.
rapport building, is dialogue, are these essential, skills that the CIA taught us. Politicians use those too. Successful businessmen use those too, right? Like building rapport with another human being, dating uses it too, right? I mean, it's such an important skill to have, and it is going on behind the scenes. And that really is how work gets done. So I think it's important for people to remember that, through all the speeches, behind the scenes, things are happening. And when things go on for a long period of time, that probably means that maybe some dialogue is lacking, but it needs to happen because otherwise we're
You know
not going to
what's
get
really
anywhere.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me is that, you've mentioned multiple times how on the world stage, the
Mhm.
rapport building happens off camera.
Right,
It happens in back rooms. It happens after hours.
right.
And I would actually kind of take that one step further, and I would say that even in everyday life, most rapport happens off the main stage of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's when your boss comes out and has a public meeting, that's not rapport building.
Right.
And when your boss stands next to you and your coworkers can see you, that's also not a moment for rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Rapport is what happens when you're in a more private setting where
Yeah.
you can kind of turn down the lights or you can turn off the microphones, you can pull out a cigar, you can pull out a drink, whatever it might be.
Right.
That's really where rapport happens. And that's exactly what CIA teaches us too, that the most powerful rapport is also kind of partnered with discretion.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have those moments, even if they're just marginal moments with somebody that you're trying to influence or someone that you're trying to woo,
Mm-hmm.
it's understanding the right time to build that connection. And
Yes.
oftentimes, the right time to build the connection is in those sidebar moments when people aren't really paying attention to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's funny because rapport building doesn't even have to happen in, like, you don't have to have like a session of rapport building. It can happen in, these smaller increments. I remember we had a really good friend at the agency, who I would go into his office like with a mission, right? I'd be like, I need to talk to him about this thing. And I'd walk into the office, and I swear to God, every single time I walked into his office, the first 10 or 15 minutes was rapport building. And it used to
Yep.
make me nuts because I knew what he was doing. But in the end, I appreciated it. It was all,
Yeah.
how are you doing? How was your weekend? How's Andy? What do you guys, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, you ask about his family and whatever. But it builds this, he is one of the few officers that I felt a real connection with after all of that,
Yeah.
right? And he just
That's
built
because
it
rapport is it's
10, 15 minutes at a
irresistible.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, because rapport is irresistible. It
right.
becomes a tool that you can literally use to just kind of beat your opponent into submission. Because even if they don't want to be your friend, it's like killing people with kindness to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Only not all rapport has to be kind.
right.
Rapport isn't about being nice or mean. It's
Mhm.
about connecting.
Connecting. Yeah.
So yeah, so if you're critiquing somebody because you care about their improvement, that's
Hmm.
rapport building. If you're
Exactly.
disciplining someone because they have broken a rule that you both agreed to, that is rapport building, right? I mean
Hmm.
that really makes it personal
Yeah.
and it takes it out of the realm of just professionalism and into the realm of everyday life.
Exactly. I mean, even as husband and wife, like you were saying, in public, you might have a public stance together, a public tiff, right? But it's behind closed doors, it's at home where you're building that rapport, where, you take a quiet moment, you stand next to your spouse when they're washing dishes and you rub their back, right?
Yeah.
You just these little moments that you have where you're connecting. And then those little moments add up over time to build more and more rapport. So when you have those arguments, it's easier for you because you have that connection built already to work through all the hard conversations.
Yeah, you know it's funny too. You've had some really cool rapport examples, even in recent history with our family. And you know, our family dynamic is difficult at times. I travel much more than I would like to travel. And you know, for all the people out there who are listening in, or all the people out there who are watching, you know, travel takes a toll on a family. And let's be honest, when you first get married, or even when you're first dating, nobody's really that important in their career when we're 20
Mm-hmm.
something and we're dating. And like, of course, you know, you can almost always count on having dinner together Friday night and spending the night at someone's house on Saturday night, and like spending the whole day together on Saturday and Sunday. But then as we get older, even if we stay in the same relationship, even as we get older, we start to find that work starts to conflict with our personal life. And then when you have children, the responsibility of parenthood also becomes a point of contention. And
Yeah.
it can be hard to recognize when you have those sidebar moments, those discrete moments where you can really build rapport, because you're so focused on the mission at hand, the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's been a challenge for you in the past. For sure, our marriage has had some hard years,
Yeah.
but I feel like you have some really recent victories where you've leveraged rapport with me and with both of the kids on their own really well.
Yeah. I think that what happens is rapport building, especially if you're talking about a personal relationship, I think rapport building in the beginning is fairly natural. But over time, and more responsibilities are piled onto your plate and your attention is pulled in different directions, rapport building has to become intentional. And I think that that's what the agency teaches us is intentional rapport building, right? Because when you're going out and you're meeting, you know, an asset or somebody, like that's an intentional act that you're doing. But we don't think about being intentional in our own personal lives. It's personal, right? You married your spouse, they're there, they're committed, right? They're there forever. So you don't think about how you have to continue to put in the work to build rapport. You don't build rapport once and then it's
Yeah.
there. Like you have to continue to build it. You have to be intentional about it. Um, so I think that's something that I personally have gotten better over the the last few years of like you said, our marriage has gone through hard times as well, and I've had to learn that lesson to be more intentional with you, to be more intentional with our kids, and really make the time to intentionally build rapport with you, to understand what makes you feel connected and what makes the children feel connected to me, and then feed those things.